Some deliveries carry more than just packages. Sometimes they carry fate itself, wrapped in cardboard and sealed with humility. Zion stood in the shadow of the towering gates of the Blackridge estate, clutching a cardboard box marked Urgent, Fragile. His faded blue delivery shirt, sun-worn and slightly too big, fluttered against the wind. Sweat trickled down his brow, not from the heat, but from the shame that always came with entering this place. He pressed the intercom button. A robotic voice answered. "State your name and purpose." He cleared his throat. "Zion Acani. Delivery from Swiftsend Express. For Mr. Maxwell." There was a long pause. Then, click, the gate swung open like a slow sneer. Zion wheeled his motorbike up the long marble driveway. The mansion loomed like a smug beast. Glass walls, granite statues, and a fountain shaped like a golden lion. As he parked, the front door flung open. Mr. Charles Maxwell strutted out in an ivory robe, flanked by 2 staff and a golden retriever that looked more pampered than Zion had ever been in his life. A wine glass dangled between Maxwell's fingers. Well, if it isn't doorstep Jesus," Maxwell chuckled, tossing a glance at his entourage. "Come to deliver salvation with duct tape and discount shoes?" The staff burst into polite laughter. Zion said nothing. He held out the package, his eyes low, his voice even. "Sir, please sign here." Maxwell didn't take the box. Instead, he squinted at Zion's name tag and sneered. "Zion? Like the holy mountain? You sure don't look heavenly." He took a step forward, waving the wine glass like a royal scepter. "Do you ever wake up and realize your life peaked when you got that cheap motorbike?" Zion said nothing. He had learned silence was cheaper than dignity in such places. Maxwell signed, carelessly scribbling with a gold pen. "Tell you what," he said, chuckling as he turned. "Next time, fly here. Save us the comedy." The door slammed shut. Zion stood there, boxless and wordless, the hum of injustice loud in his chest. But as he turned to leave, he looked up toward the open sky, and something changed in his eyes. Everyone has a breaking point. But sometimes, breaking is how we learn to fly. Zion rode down the estate's driveway slowly, his eyes on the road, but his heart miles away. Each time he passed the mansions, he wasn't just delivering goods. He was delivering himself into judgment. His cracked helmet, his worn gloves, his frayed shoes, all became evidence in their court of wealth. Maxwell wasn't the first to mock him, but he was the loudest. "Fly here," Zion muttered to himself, his fingers tightening on the throttle. "Next time, fly." The words echoed. By the time he got home, a tiny room above a noisy mechanic shop, he was still replaying the scene. His mother's faded photo sat on the shelf, watching silently as he ate leftover rice with a spoon that bent slightly at the neck. He looked at her picture and whispered, "Is this what you died for?" But deep down a flicker, a whisper of something bigger. When the world laughs at your feet, look to your wings. The next day, Zion's delivery route took him past an old, near-abandoned airstrip on the outskirts of town, a place most people had forgotten. But today he stopped. Something in him told him to. There, beneath a battered hangar roof, sat an old man fixing the rotor of a dusty helicopter. The tail was chipped. The glass was cracked. But she still looked like she could sing in the skies. Zion watched for a moment, then stepped closer. "She yours?" The old man looked up, wore a pilot's cap, smelled of oil and memories. "Used to be," he said with a smile. "Now she just listens to stories." Zion smiled back. "I've got a story," he said, "but it's mostly pain." The man stood and wiped his hands. "Pain makes the best pilots. Come on, let's talk." And that's how Zion met Captain Ray, a war vet, ex-commercial pilot, and the last person in town who believed the sky was still open for dreamers. It takes more than wings to fly. It takes will. Every evening after deliveries, Zion would return to the airstrip. Captain Ray taught him to check gauges, tighten screws, study winds, and respect weight balance. "Flying's not just mechanics," Ray said. "It's a mindset. You don't just lift off the ground. You let go of everything that holds you down." Zion listened. He asked questions. He read manuals by candlelight, circling every word he didn't understand. At night, he slept on the hangar floor when his landlord kicked him out for being late on rent. By day, he was a guy in worn boots delivering boxes. By night, he was a man chasing altitude. Just when you think you've reached the lowest point, life hands you a shovel. 3 months later, Zion was fired from Swift's End. They said he didn't fit the brand image after a client complaint. Zion didn't need to ask who it was. Maxwell. The man had filed a complaint because Zion had spoken with eyes full of pride. Zion laughed bitterly. Pride? All he did was exist. He stood outside the office with a final paycheck of 7,800 Nigerian nairas and a future emptier than his wallet. He returned to the hangar, tears burning his eyes. He collapsed beside the helicopter and whispered, "They took everything." Captain Ray knelt beside him. "No, son, they just cleared the runway." Zion looked up, and this time he saw not failure, but flight. Before someone becomes a delivery man with broken shoes, they're a boy with broken dreams. Zion wasn't always this way. There was a time, not so long ago, when he was known as Zion the Wonder Kid, a teenager who could take apart an old generator and rebuild it with nothing but a screwdriver and imagination, a boy who sat under a mango tree reading aviation magazines like they were sacred scrolls. He had dreams, big ones. He wanted to become a pilot. His mother, Miriam, used to say, "Fly high, my son, because the ground's too dirty for your spirit." But then she got sick, and in a country where hospitals cost dreams and healthcare meant heartbreak, Zion sold everything, his books, his laptop, even the small bicycle he used to commute to school, all for pills that didn't work. She died in his arms one rainy Tuesday, the same day he got his acceptance letter to the Aviation Institute. He never opened it. When the world buries your dream, find someone who knows how to dig. Captain Ray became more than a mentor. He became a father Zion never had. He didn't offer pity, just possibilities. "You got the eyes of a pilot," he said once, handing Zion a rusted wrench. "But you need the hands of a mechanic first." They rebuilt the old helicopter bit by bit. Some nights, Ray shared war stories of storms in foreign countries and skydives that ended with bruises but no regrets. Zion soaked in every word like gospel. And then the offer came. There's a flying school 2 towns over. They need ground staff. Low pay, long hours, but it's a foot in the clouds. Zion packed his bag that night. Success isn't always about talent. Sometimes it's about how long you're willing to wait on the runway before liftoff. At Eagle Wings Aviation School, Zion was a janitor, cleaner, file boy, coffee runner. But he was also something else. Invisible. No one noticed the silent cleaner who memorized cockpit layouts while scrubbing simulator floors, or the young man who recited air traffic protocols under his breath while sweeping leaves. One day, an instructor named Mr. Lou caught him staring into the hangar's Cessna 172 like it was the gates of heaven. "You ever flown one?" she asked. Zion hesitated. "Not yet, but I dream it every night." She looked at him for a long moment. "Come by on Saturday. You can ride co-pilot if you bring clean floors and stronger coffee." And that was the beginning. There are moments that don't feel real until your heart remembers how to beat again. The engine roared to life. Zion sat beside Mr. Lou, headset on, trembling hands on his lap. The plane lifted off the ground, and the city shrunk below them like a forgotten insult. Zion's eyes brimmed with tears. He was in the sky. "How does it feel?" she asked. He whispered, "Like I found the part of me that never died." From that moment on, he was obsessed. He started attending theory classes unofficially. He'd mop the instructors' office floors and accidentally leave questions on their desks. Most ignored him, but not all. Miss Tolu began mentoring him in secret. While one man climbs silently, another falls loudly. Back in Blackridge Estate, Charles Maxwell's empire began to crack. His investments in a luxury crypto condo scam fell through. Half his company's logistics chain had collapsed due to poor planning. And the final nail? A new competitor was rising, a sleek new logistics firm, using drones and rotorcraft to cut delivery time in half. They were called SkySwift Logistics, and they were stealing every major client Maxwell had. One day, Maxwell screamed at his secretary, "Find out who owns that damn company. I'll buy them, fire them, bury them." But the name attached to SkySwift's founding, it was still hidden under a shell company. Zion wanted it that way. For now, every champion has a season of private sacrifice that no one applauds. Zion took odd jobs to afford simulator hours. He drove late-night ride-hailing shifts. He cleaned bathrooms at gas stations. He slept 4 hours a night, studied engine systems on borrowed tablets, and ate instant noodles like it was currency. He failed his first written exam. He passed the second. He flew again, and then came the license. One cold morning, Captain Ray stood outside the hangar, holding an envelope. "You did it, son. Officially." Zion opened it with trembling fingers. Pilot certification. He dropped to his knees and cried. The best revenge is building something so high, they have to look up to insult you. With help from Mr. Liu, Zion launched a startup. He called it SkySwift. It started with one leased helicopter and 2 drones. They handled emergency medical supplies, VIP deliveries, and disaster relief. Social media loved them. Local news picked up the story of the delivery boy who became a pilot. Investors noticed. Within a year, SkySwift expanded to 3 aircraft, a small fleet of drones, and a reputation for speed, precision, and professionalism. Zion stayed quiet. No interviews. No ego. Just focus. Until one day, a familiar name appeared on the client list. Maxwell Industries. Poetic justice doesn't always come with trumpets. Sometimes it arrives with polite email. Maxwell's assistant called SkySwift. They needed urgent airlift of high-value materials after their traditional trucks were hijacked. Time-sensitive, high risk, high pay. Zion approved it personally. He scheduled the delivery himself and requested to pilot the chopper. His staff raised eyebrows. "Sir, we have junior pilots who can take it." "No," Zion replied. "This one is personal. When you rise above your enemies, descend only to remind them what humility looks like." The rotor blades chopped through the air like justice being sharpened. Zion's SkySwift chopper descended slowly over the same Blackridge estate, where he'd once been humiliated. This time there was no motorbike, no torn gloves, no laughter, just sky and steel. Maxwell stood at the helipad, confused. Then the cockpit opened, and Zion stepped out, clean uniform, pilot shades, and a calmness money couldn't buy. Maxwell's jaw dropped. "You..." Zion handed him the package. "Urgent delivery from Mr. Maxwell." Maxwell took it in stunned silence. "Wait, you were the delivery guy." Zion smiled, cool and composed. "I still deliver, sir, just from a higher altitude. Some insults age like fine wine, better served cold and from above." Maxwell tried to recover. "Listen, I didn't know. It was just a joke back then." Zion interrupted. "You weren't joking. You were showing me who you were. I just didn't know who I was yet." Maxwell looked away, shame flooding his face. Zion turned to board the chopper, then paused. "One more thing." Maxwell looked up. "Next time you laugh at someone, make sure they can't fly." The chopper blades roared, and Zion took off, leaving Maxwell standing on the ground where he belonged. Sometimes a single moment becomes a mirror for everyone watching, showing them who they truly are. The video went viral. A house staff at Blackridge Estate had secretly filmed the moment the helicopter landed. Zion's words, "I still deliver, sir, just from a higher altitude," echoed across social media like thunder over a quiet town. Comments flooded in. "This is what karma looks like in 4K. From bike to bird. Mad respect. Never mock a man on his way up." Maxwell was humiliated. Board members whispered. Clients reconsidered. Even his own daughter, Lana, who had watched the clip from boarding school in London, messaged him. "Dad, what did you do? When the wind finally blows in your favor, don't forget how to steer." Zion didn't celebrate. He didn't tweet. He didn't boast. Instead, he poured every new contract into expansion. SkySwift added 2 new choppers. A tech team launched an app that allowed real-time drone tracking. Clients now waited to be accepted. Zion's office grew too, but he kept his desk near the window, facing the sky. Miss Tolu became director of training. Captain Ray oversaw flight safety. The boy who once swept hangars now owned one. But Zion remained quiet until he got a letter with a Blackridge estate seal. There's a difference between regret and remorse. One wants comfort. The other wants change. The letter was an invitation, a private dinner, handwritten, from Lana Maxwell. Mr. Canny, I watch your journey from afar. If you would ever consider sitting at our table, I'd like to hear your story firsthand. No tricks, just truth. Zion hesitated. Captain Ray read the letter and smirked. Your past is calling, son. Up to you if you want to pick up. He picked up. Once you've eaten with shame, you never forget what dignity tastes like. The Blackridge dining hall was everything Zion remembered and nothing he feared. The servants opened the door. Lana greeted him, not with arrogance, but with sincerity. She was nothing like her father. Graceful, grounded. Over dinner, she listened. No interruptions. No judgments. Zion spoke of poverty, pain, ambition, and grace. Of his mother. Of Captain Ray. Of what it felt like to be seen as nothing more than a pair of dusty shoes. Lana blinked back tears. I'm sorry for what he did to you, and for what he still refuses to see. Zion nodded. The funny thing is, if he hadn't mocked me, I might never have looked up. Sometimes, kings fall not by swords but by silence. Charles Maxwell didn't attend the dinner. He watched from a window, fists clenched, ego trembling. That night, he called a board meeting. We need to launch an air division. Beat SkySwift at their own game. But his CFO raised a hand. We tried. Twice. It's not the machines, Charles. It's the man flying them. Investors began pulling out. Maxwell's arrogance had aged badly in a world now cheering for the underdog. Even staff started calling. In sick, quiet rebellions in polite dress. Maxwell was losing more than profits. He was losing relevance. If you build in silence, your success will make the loudest noise in the room. Zion was nominated for Young Innovator of the Year by the National Tech Board. The gala was grand. Politicians, CEOs, and media swarmed the red carpet. He didn't bring a date. He brought Captain Ray. In his speech, Zion didn't talk about Maxwell. He talked about his mother. She died, so I could live with dignity. I fly not to escape the ground, but to honor those who never had the chance to rise. The audience stood in ovation, and in the back row, Lana Maxwell applauded with a full heart. The problem with building your kingdom on pride is that rain will come. Maxwell launched Air Max Couriers, a rushed, expensive, and bloated imitation of SkySwift. It failed within 3 months. The drones crashed. The pilots resigned. Clients mocked the rollout. And worst of all, the media compared every failure to Zion's excellence. Maxwell tried one last PR move. He offered to buy SkySwift. He emailed Zion a blank check. Zion replied with one line. My dignity is not for sale. Yours already was. Some apologies are never spoken, but they're heard anyway. Weeks later, Zion received a package. No return address. Inside, a crumpled copy of the first complaint Maxwell filed against him with one word scratched across it in shaky handwriting. Wrong. And beneath it, a business card torn in half. It was Maxwell's. Zion sat in silence. Then he smiled. Sometimes silence is the loudest I'm sorry. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means being free enough to keep flying. Zion visited Blackridge one last time. Not as a pilot, not as a delivery man, but as a guest. He found Maxwell alone in the garden, older, quieter. They didn't speak much. Zion simply said, Thank you for not believing in me. It helped me believe in myself. Maxwell looked up, eyes tired. And thank you for rising anyway. They shook hands. No cameras. No crowds. Just 2 men who had exchanged places in the sky. True success isn't about revenge. It's about reaching heights where revenge no longer matters. Years later, SkySwift became a regional air logistics giant. Zion opened a training school, the Miriam Flight Academy, named after his mother. He trained young dreamers from slums and villages, gave them what he never had, a fair chance. One morning, a student asked, "Sir, what made you start flying?" Zion smiled, stepping toward the helicopter. "A man once laughed at me and told me to fly." The student looked confused. "Wasn't that mean?" Zion nodded. "Yes, but it was also prophecy." The blades roared. Zion lifted into the sky. Free, forgiven, and finally fulfilled. They said he wouldn't last. But he wasn't aiming to last. He was born to soar. The sky was pink that morning, soft with promise. Zion stood on the rooftop helipad of Miriam Flight Academy, watching the next generation of pilots take off, one by one. He held a small photo in his hand. His mother, smiling on a faded Christmas morning. "We did it," he whispered. He thought of his first bike, his dusty shoes, the laughter at Blackridge, the pain, the hunger, the silence, and the sky. Always the sky. Some connections are born in conflict, but forged in truth. Lana Maxwell called unexpectedly. She was back in town, now running her own education nonprofit. They met at a quiet cafe, no paparazzi, no press. Just two people who had seen life's worst and chose to be better anyway. "My father's in therapy now," Lana said, smiling sadly. "He never stopped talking about the day you landed that chopper." Zion chuckled. "Good. Maybe he'll learn that altitude has nothing to do with height and everything to do with heart. Not every flight is upward. Sometimes you need to land to lift someone else." Zion began making unannounced visits to low-income schools. He'd walk into classrooms uninvited, in plain clothes, and share his story. Not the viral version. The real version. The one with hunger, shame, injustice, and endurance. He didn't talk about helicopters. He talked about holding on when nobody clapped, about being laughed at and still showing up. "Your dreams don't need permission," he'd say. "Only commitment. You never know who's watching your journey. Sometimes the next you is sitting quietly, waiting for a reason to believe." At one such school, a shy boy named I might approach him. "Sir, they call me delivery boy because I run errands. They laugh at me." Zion knelt beside him. "Let them laugh. Just make sure you're carrying something bigger than the package." He handed Iamide a small pin, a pilot's wing badge. It's yours, but earn the sky with it." The boy nodded, eyes burning with purpose. History was repeating itself, in a better way. Some moments feel final, not because they end something, but because they honor everything that came before. Zion got a call from Captain Ray's nurse. Ray's heart had grown weak, too weak to fly. Zion rushed to the hospital. Ray smiled faintly from his bed. "Still chasing clouds, son?" Zion took his hand. "No, just building ladders for others now." Ray chuckled. "Good, because real pilots fly with legacy." That night, Zion requested hospital clearance. The next morning, Captain Ray was wheeled onto the airstrip one last time. Zion flew the chopper. Ray wept quietly in the passenger seat. "I'm dying," he whispered. Zion smiled. "Not today, sir. Today you're flying. When you rise for the right reasons, even kings take notice." SkySwift was invited to partner on a national rescue mission during a coastal flood disaster. Zion's fleet delivered food, medicine, and hope faster than any government response. A week later, he was summoned to Abuja. The president thanked him personally. "Your wings save lives. Your story is our story." But Zion declined the offered political post. "I didn't rise to rule," he said. "I rose to serve." Sometimes closure doesn't come from doors. It comes from the way you walk past them. Zion flew again to Blackridge, this time with Iamide. The state looked smaller now, less intimidating, less shiny. Maxwell, older and quieter, greeted them on the lawn. "Is this the next you?" he asked. Zion nodded. "He's not me. He'll be better." They shared a moment, not as enemies, but as witnesses of how life changes people, if they let it. When your story becomes a light, don't hide it in the shadows. A global documentary featured Zion's journey. It was called Wings of Dignity. Interviews, reenactments, the original intercom audio, even the old clip from the mansion's helipad. Zion watched it only once. Then he turned off the screen. Let them be inspired, he told Mr. Liu. But I've still got work to do. You can't stop people from mocking your journey, but you could decide where it ends. One day, Zion returned to the old mechanic shop, where he once lived above the noise. The new tenant, a delivery rider, didn't recognize him. Zion handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was a tuition scholarship and a note. To the next dreamer who's being laughed at, this one's for you. I believe in your takeoff. ZA, the richest man isn't the one with the most power. It's the one who turns pain into purpose. Zion stood once more on a runway at sunset beside Iamide. Are you nervous? The boy asked. Zion smiled. Only when I forget how far I've come. Iamide gripped the controls. First solo flight. Zion stepped back, letting go. The chopper lifted slowly, uneven, shaky, but rising. Just like he once did, he looked to the heavens and whispered, "Thank you for every insult, every door slammed, every mile walked. They didn't break me. They built my wings." And with that, Zion walked back toward his hangar as another boy soared